Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, a Volvo XC40 Recharge Special Edition. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew.
So, come on then. You had this one, so I get to ask all the awkward questions and be slightly condescending in the manner that you normally are. Volvo XC40 Recharge Twin Pro. Many words.
Yes.
Bit of a salad.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Definitely is. So this is a Volvo's XC40 that we know and have seen since 2017. I think the internal combustion engine version
5
came
years,
out.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't have said it was that long.
No, I double-checked. I had to really double-check because I didn't think it was that long. But this one's all electric-y, hence the Recharge.
As in all electric-y, or...
It is a completely EV. It is not a hybrid,
Okay.
nor is it the plug-in hybrid version. It is a pure EV version. So we know that Volvo is stepping away from internal combustion engine vehicles and they're embracing hybrids and the full EV versions of all their models. So this is one of the step in that direction.
Mm-hmm. We're assuming, by the way, that everybody knows that an XC40 is a compact SUV, 5 doors, etc. Bit of a bonnet.
Yes. Sorry, I was going to cover that in the exterior bit.
Right. Sorry, I just thought we might as well just cover the sort of overall of what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right to say it, though. It is the compact SUV in the range. So it sits below the XC60. Nice, simple, clean, boxy design.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to have done really well. I see lots of them about.
Yes, they are. They got into the top 10 at one point, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Not so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, keep on going with the various specs. Sorry, I just want to interrupt and just set that little bit of scene. We'll cover it properly when we get to the exterior. But
no, quite right to do that.
Just before you went too far into the, colours.
Quite right. I had the Pro, which is at the time that I had the car was at the top of the range, but the range starts. The Twin is the Recharge Twin, and the Twin means that there's 2 motors. There is the single version as well. Then it moves up to the Plus, then it goes to the Pro. Now there is an Ultimate, which sits above all that.
Oh, you would hope so, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Until the Ultimate Plus comes along.
Yes.
Of course. That's a joke. It's just a joke. There is no Ultimate Plus yet.
Volvo, you can have that if you like.
Yeah.
So
get them for free.
With the full EVs, the range starts at 49,950. You're well clear of the hint of a plug-in grant.
Yeah, don't be expecting any grants on this one.
Yep. It goes up to, well, at the time, the one I had, the Pro is 56,700. That starts on the road. But then the Ultimate is £58,050.
That's a bit stingy, isn't it?
Yes.
It certainly seems it anyway.
It does. We'll get more into that as we go on. But there is, of course, Volvo's subscription service, which is called Care by Volvo. And to get the Pro via the subscription equates to £619 per month with a 6,000 mile annual mileage limit, no initial rental fee, and that's on the fixed 36-month scheme. There is a flexible scheme where you can give 3 months notice, but I didn't look into the price of that is obviously...
it's about £100 a month steeper.
Yeah.
Generally,
yeah. But it seems to be something... I mean, it's definitely something Volvo are pushing, and subscriptions seem to be a model that more and more manufacturers are investigating quite heavily.
There's some interesting stuff even on the buying outright. Sorry, I did have a little bit of a look at this, and that's that if you do the outright and you finance it yourself, then you get 3 years of insurance included and stuff. So there's all sorts of weird ups and downs. I mean, even with these, you get a month, your first month's insurance is included and stuff.
Yeah, I'd say you definitely need to look at not the small print, but what the options are and what it does give you and what it doesn't give you. You really do need to pay attention.
It's just a bit more than a lease.
Yes.
Generally, it seems more than you would normally expect from a lease. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
but worth a little bit of a look. So the number is not just a number. You've got to have a look at the context it's in.
Yep. That's true. Right, colour-wise, this comes with a number this year for that. And it's the Black Stone, which is a flat black. There's Onyx Black, which is metallic-y black. Thunder Grey, which is that undercoat grey that you've seen the XC40s in.
The oops, I forgot to paint it grey.
It doesn't look as bad in real life as I've made it out there by calling it undercoat. It actually doesn't look too bad. It suits the car, the shape, the size quite well, because the roof is typically a different color as well, just as a standard. It breaks it up a bit. There's a Fjord Blue, which is a petrol blue, Silver Dawn, which is very much silver, and Bright Dusk, which is a sort of light metallic-y beigey sand.
Right.
It's quite light, so it's not gold or something like that, thankfully, because I think that would be just a bit too gauche.
A little bit retirement community.
Yes. The one I had was in Bursting Blue, which unfortunately has been discontinued this year, which is a real shame, because it was a lovely bright blue, which particularly when I had it and the weather was so grim, it really lifted everything around it. It really suits the car very well. So unfortunately, you can't get that now. The car I had sat on 20-inch 5 V-spoke diamond cut matte graphite alloy wheels, which, according to the spec sheet, were included in the price, but I have seen on the website, and this may have changed since I had the car on loan, that they are an optional extra now. This was the twin motor all-wheel drive version, and that produces 408 horsepower with a max output of 308 kilowatt or 660 newton meters. That gives a WLTP range of 259.1 miles.
Is that it? Like, could they be a little bit more or less specific, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's not to 3 decimal points, so I'm a bit, could have been better. We'll discuss that a bit more later on, and there's obviously zero CO2 emission from the vehicle. 0 to 62, because this is the twin, is 4.9 seconds.
That's pretty nippy, isn't it?
It is really rather nippy, and you need to be careful with your right foot and be aware that there is a lot of power that is instantly available. There is a top speed of 112 mile an hour. Now, that may not sound much.
Sounds like plenty to me, to be honest.
Yes, it is well over the national speed limit, so therefore it is plenty. But if we remember, Volvo announced a couple of years ago that they would be limiting, for safety reasons, limiting the top speed of their vehicles at 112 miles an hour. And this is an example of them actually following through on that. This is all part of Volvo's safety is in their DNA that they talk about, and they really are pushing to do this. And we know it's going to come through with the EU regulations that limits will be put in on cars as well. So I think they've just got ahead of the game.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's going to stop people sort of using up your battery too quickly if you do it in an EV.
Yeah, exactly. The combined consumption is claimed to be 23.9 kilowatts per 62 miles, or that is 2.59 kilowatts per mile.
Okay.
We will discuss that later too.
Yes, I'm sure we will. I mean, the outside, we've pretty much talked about it, I think, but for the sake of, keeping to the format, it's a handsome looking thing, the XC40, isn't it? I guess the electric version is no different, really. It
looks virtually identical, apart from the front grille is filled in. However, it seems to work quite well. With some of them that it looks a bit, they've either not cut the grille out or just put something in place. This seems to work really well.
They can be a little bit Lecter,
yes,
can't they? Sometimes. I think of the first generation Ioniq for that one, the electric one.
Yeah. Well, they're color-coded, and there is something that actually goes into the grille slot. So it's not as though it's just a blank panel that they've forgotten to cut out or anything. So I think it works well. Most people aren't going to notice, I don't think.
No. But other than that, it looks like an XC40. So
yes. It's definitely a Volvo. You will not go around and go, oh, is that a Mercedes or an Audi or something? No, it's definitely a Volvo. And it's all the better for it. It looks really distinctive. It looks really good. And I think it manages to pull off the not looking aggressive yet not looking like it's too soft or pandering to something.
It's not, you know what it's like with the different ends of the extreme here. You've got your sort of Audi, Volkswagen, Lexus at one end, and at the other end you've got the Fiat 500. It sort of sits bang splat right between the two of them,
and I think that's reflected in the variety of people I've seen driving them.
All right,
I think as well.
Anyway, and as is traditional, tell us about the inside.
Okay, starting round by the boot. The boot is large. It's 400 odd litres, which, considering this is actually compact, and it is not a massive footprint on this car. It's a really useful, big, flat, open space. It's fairly rectangular in shape, but it's quite clever as well. Unusually for an EV, there is an undercroft.
And it's quite it's quite a big undercroft
it
as
is.
well, isn't it?
Yes. And because it's Volvo and they like to do clever things with certain bits of the car, the floor will fold up. So you can have it sat up and hold certain bits either between the folded up and the back of the seats, or it leaves space for something a bit taller to sit in the undercroft sticking up.
And there are pointy uppy bits on there. Does that mean it gives you an extra 2 curry hooks in addition to the 2 static curry hooks that I see in the pictures here?
If you want, yes. The curry hooks are
amazing.
not the greatest, the fixed ones on the sides. They're not the most robust feeling of curry hooks.
Right.
With me, I used the undercroft. I just lifted the boot floor and put the stuff in there, and I knew it wasn't going to bounce around. It would stay where I wanted it to stay. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the curry hooks do work because I did try them. They do work, but they just don't feel as well done. And I know I'm going on about a curry hook here, but
yeah, well, you are a bit of a connoisseur on these things.
I feel I am. I feel that I could consult with all manufacturers and let them know.
It's the molded in. As soon as you see a molded in curry hook, then you're marking down the car, aren't you?
Flags are beginning to be raised, and I start to become worried. Yes, that's true.
This is maybe suboptimal.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about the boot. It's got a cover and stuff as well.
Yep. Yeah. It's cool. Yes. It's a solid cover. It's electric boot lid as well. Really, it's a good, useful, surprisingly large boot space.
It would be a pretty disappointing Volvo if that wasn't the case, wouldn't it?
But I was so surprised because the car, it doesn't come across as that big.
No.
But this carries out throughout the rest of the car, because if we go to the rear passenger seats...
I was about to say, I looked at the picture of the back seats and the amount of foot and knee room there, and it's like, it looks vast.
There is an awful lot in it. I had to catch myself and think, are we up a grade here? Are we sort of XC60 size? Because this was originally an internal combustion engine car design. And normally when you stick in batteries and all the rest of it, there is compromise somewhere.
Well, the undercroft is normally the first to go.
Typically, space in the car is a problem. But this had a loads of space. Like it was all 3 of the cracked windscreens could get in the back, no problem. There was no fighting, no squabbling. Okay, there is quite an intrusive transmission tunnel.
Yeah, there is.
But as long as you're aware of that, and then you make it very clear about death sentences for fighting over because of something that can't be changed in any way, then you get on. So you just need to be aware of that if you're taking, say, 3 adults. But there's still enough space in the footwells for everyone to sit without standing on each other. Yeah. And the seats are big enough. The outside, 2 outside seats are heated as well. Mm-hmm. So you get that, and then there's also a directional heater in the end of the cubby box from the front seats, as well as a charging point.
A 12 volt, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do get what you would expect these days in the back there. Mm-hmm. It's a nice space. You don't feel, even though the materials are quite dark in there, you don't feel that it's Black Hole of Qatar-ish, because there's this lovely panoramic sunroof.
Oh, okay. That makes a big difference.
I had that open all the time. Even with, like I said, when I had the car, the weather was grim and it was dark and all the rest of it. But because it's the glass is so vast, it brings in whatever light there is out there, and it just helps lift the place. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the materials themselves as well it wasn't black on black on black, but they were of the darker end of the spectrum. So there was greys and blacks and things like that. So, but it was a nice use of materials as well, because in the door cards they had fabric as well behind the handles, instead of it being plastic or pseudo leather or whatever. And that was quite nice touch on there as well. The detail has been thought through of people being in that place.
This is something Volvo's very good at, though.
Yes.
It is one of their key skills over the last two generations, 3 generations of cars.
And they have reiterated how they pay a lot of attention to that. Because when you move up into the front, there's the sense of space is still there, if the driver or the passenger. You've seen the pictures there. That's the rear passenger's space was there with me, with my seat in the normal position. Okay, I'm not 6'4" or anything like that. But even if I had been, there's still quite a lot of space behind that seat if I'd pushed it back. With that space and the light and the way the car was set up, it was quite a calm place to be. Even though it was rapid, and I'll get into that, it was... I'm not saying that it's like smothered you and made you sort of, you will be calm at all time, but there was nothing in it that aggravated you from that side. It was just a calming place. Everyone was comfortable. No one was complaining. There was none of that. And if you're the driver, all the controls are exactly where you expected them to be. Okay, some of the stuff's in the touchscreen, like the heating controls, but if you are not changing them often, it is a set and go. And things like the quick clear for this front windscreen and the rear windscreen are actually buttons.
Right.
So you've still got that immediate one-touch ability, which is important, I think.
It's an important thing in cold climates, certainly.
Yeah. On the steering wheel, nice 3-spoke steering wheel, that you've got the usual sort of buttons you would expect. So you can activate the voice controls, you can do the adaptive cruise control, including how close and far you want to be from any vehicles in front of you before it starts to brake or accelerate. Then you've got the ability to go through the different options of information you'll have on the, frankly, quite large, it's like 12-inch across digital screen behind the steering wheel.
Yeah.
That has two modes. It has the map mode or calm. It's called.
Oh, okay. Which did you choose?
Calm, because the map actually fills the whole thing, which I wasn't expecting, because I was expecting it to be in between, like the power, the drive mode you're in and power you've got left, as well as how it indicates how much you're, should we say, pushing on or being economical with your right foot. But when you put the map in, they're on the very edge of that, and they're sort of a bit more bold, but the whole map is there for you to see, which took a little bit of getting used to, but I obviously, more information is better when it comes to maps and seeing stuff around. So it's quite good. So you can switch, if you're in the calm mode where you don't have the map showing, you can, again, via the buttons on the steering wheel, you can change what sort of things you see. So it's like the trip computers and all that sort of typical stuff that you would expect these days in that bit. You can also do directions as well. So it will be telling you, rather than showing you a map, it will be telling you what your next move is going to be.
Okay. But that's clear and easy to read?
Massive fan of Volvo's font when it comes to the dials and information you need to be able to glance at and see. Well,
you're a Saab driver, so you'll appreciate these kind of things.
Yeah, it's a really clear, yet it's a small font, so it's not over the top. I really, I can nerd out about fonts now.
No, please don't.
No, I won't.
But some brands go a little bit OTT on the sort of font choices. Some of the German ones I'm thinking of go a little bit crazy on the font choices, so it's always nice to see the opposite.
Yes, some people go a bit italic-y and things like that. This is just a very plain, simple, easy. The point that I think somebody selected it is because it's quick and easy to read, which is important, I think, and what I want.
But you would hope so on a car dashboard. You'd hope that would be one of the reasons, one of the considerations.
But sometimes when you look at some choices, you think, marketing got hold of that, didn't they?
Yeah, just a little bit. You haven't told us about what's below the buttons below the screen just yet.
Okay, so
for the interest of,
doing an Andrew review,
the fact that you like doing an Andrew review, mercifully there aren't that many buttons on the dashboard. You might have noticed this, people, in the fact that this has only taken a few minutes rather than 20, which can sometimes be the case.
So in the middle of the dashboard, in between the passenger and the front seat, is this huge 10, 11-inch portrait-style touchscreen. Either side of that are the vents for the front passenger and for the driver. And then below that are the buttons. You have the hazard warning lights. You've got the front windscreen, rear windscreen. You've also got the quick ability to stop or play any infotainment media. Then below that, we get into a...
Can you change the volume there as well?
Yes, the bevel dial changes the volume. But
cool.
For those that find this really important to them, the play and pause symbols do not move. It's only the exterior part of the dial.
As is right and proper.
Right, below all that is a wireless charging pad. And then just behind that, coming back down the transmission tunnel, there's this little cover over a very small cubby, which would, back in the day, would have just been the ashtray. It seems very odd that these things still exist now. So you'd be able to chuck a pen in there or some coins, but...
We think of it as the remote control for your garage doors.
Possibly, yes. Or maybe even the key. Maybe you put the key, because it's a keyless one. And then you've got on the left-hand side of the transmission tunnel, you've got two drinks holders. On the right, you've got the drive mode selector, which is a nice little stubby selector. You're only touching it for a fraction of a second, then you've got your hands on the wheel. So it's a really nice shape and interesting chunkiness to it.
It's fun because it's the same one as they use in the LEVC taxi.
This one's covered in leather, though.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Then as you come back, you get into the armrest and the cubby hole in there, which is large and got plenty of space. So
generally a nice, comfy, calm place to sit with some interesting materials, seems to be what you've told me.
Yes, it is. It is. The touch points are really nice. As we discussed when we were just chatting through all this anyway, it's really been thought through, and that becomes apparent the more that you use the car. Because you'll go along and you'll just be doing normal getting in and out, using it, the steering wheel, whatever it is you're doing in the car that you would just typically be doing. And then after a little while, I suddenly went, oh, hang on. That was nice. I didn't... Whereas sometimes you get in a car and you have to think, you touch it and sort of go, oh, because I've done this thing, you've made me realize something about you. Whereas I found I was appreciating it after because it didn't bring it to my attention.
That's a nice thing, I always say.
Yes. Yeah, it was just very natural and very, very much what you would expect. And it just did it in a really nice way.
I always like when you get cars that do that. It just seems to chime.
It just added to the whole calmness of it all.
Yes, there was one I had recently, which in so many ways was just like that. But yes, competitor to this, the electric Lexus UX was just the same. It was a similar thing, similar size vehicle, to be honest.
Yeah,
but it was one of those things where stuff just was there and it was nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about the driving? If we want to move on a little bit.
Okay, well, the first thing that you really notice when you drive this is it's quick. My word, the 4.9 seconds, because if you go for the single motor, it's 10 seconds, 0 to 62. So there is quite a jump by sticking an extra motor in there. And you obviously adjust. You adjust pretty quickly, but there is always that ability that if, say you think, oh, I can pull out here, and then you realize somebody's coming in a bit quicker than you anticipated or thought they were, you've got the ability to get yourself out of that little bit of a moment very easily, which I liked that point of view, but I'll go on later when I run through my use of the car and how my week went with it, that I'd possibly swap some of the speed out for something else.
So, I mean, that's the speed part. What about handling? What's it like when you're either trundling around or making progress?
Well, again, continuing on with it's calm. The handling's really, I was surprised. It's pretty decent because this thing has got so much power and so much speed in it. If you are not paying attention, because it's quiet as well. So So that adds to, your sudden, oh, hang on, this corner's coming a bit quicker than I thought it was. And then you look down and notice quite the speed you're doing, or the head-up display tells you. So the handling's pretty decent. There's a bit of body roll because this is a comfortable car first and foremost, but you're not wallowing into corners, and equally you're not crashing over things, and it's not sort of bunny hopping. It's the whole. I found it for day-to-day usage with the family or just on my own. It was really well composed, and I liked how it drove as a car. There was no problems at all. Like I say, it felt inside much bigger than it was. It felt very nimble and very lithe. Again, with having that immediate power, but the steering was reasonably light, fairly neutral. All steering's neutral most of the time these days, anyway. It went when you turned. There's no slack in the steering or anything frightening.
You'd
like
kind of
that.
hope not, to be perfectly honest.
No, but there are some cars
SUV.
not that long ago where you would get that. There would be some play in the wheel.
So there's no need to shout ahoy before entering into a sharp corner.
You're not throwing an anchor out the side, no. I had the all-wheel drive version, so the grip was excellent, and that was incredibly useful, and it also confidence building, because when I had the car, the roads were round where I live were grim, to say the least, as the farmers were dragging most of their fields into the roads. And so that made some routes, shall we say, interesting, and not in a good way.
It's like round here where you just get in the car and you go for a drive and you find you've got most of a field down the side and the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the time you get home again, yeah.
But also makes the surfaces very slick. One thing that when I was looking on Volvo's website is that they make it clear the sort of ranges you should expect in different driving conditions or environments. So they split it down to that you have city urban driving. So it's a bit like the miles per gallon that we would typically look at. So there is the urban, there's the mixed, and then there's the motorway driving.
Yes.
And they had, but what I found very interesting is they had two ranges that they put up. So they put up in what they would is, like normal or preferred conditions. So it's not cold, it's not overly wet or anything like that. It's just a spring summer's day. This is what you should expect to get out of your car if you were doing city driving, whatever. But they also had in that same couple of sentences what you should expect if it's cold. Now, I found that interesting because they're being very upfront, because there is a big difference between how they expect it to happen in good conditions or optimal conditions to how far they expect the vehicle to go if the conditions are cold. As in, we're talking 100 miles, 130 miles off the ranges.
Yeah, which is half the range, essentially,
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, and that bore out with my experience, because when I had the cars, the temperature was of the 5 to minus something or other range for the week I had it. So it wasn't warm, it was not optimal conditions, and the range that the car was claiming I would have, and then the range I would see after doing journeys in how much the mileage would come down, was a bit of a surprise initially.
Right.
And this is where I'm sort of getting into with what I said, that I'd swap a bit of the speed for more range, but particularly what I want more efficiency, because the efficiency was not great at all.
No. It's a bit of an electron guzzler, really, isn't it?
It is.
Guzzler, if you're being a complete nerd.
To be honest, I initially thought that I was doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I checked with people we know that have had this before, and fortunately I was in the ballpark of where they were when they had the car as well. So the efficiency is not great, and considering the car starts at £49,000.
Yeah. So just to give some comparative efficiency here, because we do kind of still need to do that. I had the Volkswagen ID3. Again, it was cold and a bit of pottering around over 101 miles. I managed 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. What were you getting out of the Volvo, Andrew?
Ranging between 1.8 and 2.1.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea. It was a third to 2/3 of as efficient as the ID3 was.
Yeah. Which I have to say,
not completely like for like, but that's still a fair old whack.
Yeah.
You know,
that disappointed me. I have to say, like I said, that get rid of the speed to a certain degree, to a greater degree. Go closer to a single motor 0 to 62 time, but give me more efficiency with that motor, please. And you would be much closer to the range that they said, even with cold conditions.
Exactly.
But, and this is something we talked about beforehand, and I think you were quite right. This is Volvo's first step.
Although this is their first all-electric Volvo badged car, so unlike the Polestar, for example, Polestar 2, this is an electric Volvo, the first one. A bit like, and I think in the chat we were having beforehand, where we tried not to go into too much detail, so we didn't really know what we were going to talk about. I said it was a lot like the e-Golf.
Yes,
taking an existing platform, an existing vehicle that's really been engineered as an internal combustion engine car, possibly with a little bit of FEVness or hybridness stuck in, and it's swapping out all of that for as much battery as you can find space for, really, without causing too much of a compromise or making too costly a difference to the body shell.
Yeah, as I believe that is the case, because I think you're spot on with that. I doubt anyone at Volvo would ever admit that, but I think you're spot on with that. I think they are able to iron through their king. I mean, this is a good stab at it, and I think they will learn a lot of lessons from it.
Yeah,
which will mean that the next generation of EVs from Volvo will be that much better than they were. And there's.
So how much of a let me move on then. Okay, so how much of a pain in the bottom was it that the range was quite short?
The problem I have is that I do not have a home charger. This was getting the harshest of real-world tests from the Motoring Podcast, because...
And not just from the little windscreens.
Yes, because whilst my local Environ does have, I mean, we are lucky now, and we talked about this recently in a news show. My town now does have, on paper, a lot of charging points. So we've got many options when it comes to 7 kilowatt charging points, and we've got 2 rapid chargers, which range between 43 and 50 kilowatt. However, every single charging point either requires an additional payment for parking, or is on a short, as in up to 90 minutes, time restriction.
Yes, that's not ideal.
Therefore, I either have to pay an all-day parking thing to get the 7 kilowatt to charge enough to make it worthwhile, and I have to walk 1.5 miles to and from that car park, which adds to the lack of convenience, shall we say.
Yeah, that is not convenient.
No. Or, but what was added with the rapid chargers is they at the time I had 2 electric cars, not just one, but I had 2
so you'll
electric
get
cars.
to hear this all again, folks. All over it again. And if you're only hearing it twice, you're doing better than me.
They were not even running at 7 kilowatts at the slower charging point ability, yet they were charging me at the high ability, which miffed me somewhat, I can say. If I was parking at 7 kilowatt charging points closer to home, I'd have to pop out every hour and 15 minutes to go and move them round to get to another one, because I would have got tickets.
Okay.
If I had a home charger,
this is where I'm going with you. Yeah.
This car, the frustrations over the range and the frustrations the frustration over the range would have evaporated. The frustration with its not ideal efficiency would have lessened a lot.
Yes.
Because I would have known that I could easily bump it back up. And next time I got in it, it wouldn't matter that much that it was running 1.8 to 2 point whatever.
Yeah, because you weren't going to be going on a road trip or
No.
anything.
No. If I had that, this goes out the window. I would also say that if I had the hybrid or plug-in hybrid, my frustrations would have virtually gone as well.
We would be having to put up with him being nauseatingly over positive, everyone, and that would be just as annoying as him being all.
I feel a bit bad about this, actually, having to talk about the charging network, because that is not Volvo's fault.
It's completely out with their control.
They cannot control that. Exactly. They cannot control what my local charging thing is. However, because the motors are not that efficient and because the range wasn't that great, again, weather's not their fault, but it's their machine that is to work in all times, in all conditions and in all environments. It unfortunately has to come into the conversation about it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to anybody listening, particularly if they don't have a home charger.
Yeah. Was there anything you did like about the charging experience with the car?
There was. Yes. I know that people may find that hard to believe, but there is, when you start charging it in the screen that's behind the steering wheel, it actually tells you how many miles it's charging up per hour, which I thought was a nice little touch.
I did. Did you? You didn't get a chance to try it in a very fast charger, did you?
No, because they weren't working.
Above.
Because I would have liked watching that just going.
Above rapid. Yeah, because I did that because the ID3 did the same, and it was coming in at like 200 miles an hour, which made me chuckle. I just liked that. What was it? Yeah, there it is. There, 195 miles an hour. I was charging at one point.
Yeah. Oh, but also just before we move on from the charging side of things, with a 150 kilowatt charger, Volvo say that you can get from 10 to 80% in 37 minutes.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Which is great if you are stopping on the motorway, quick pit stop, grab a coffee, come back out. You'll have topped up a big chunk of your battery at that point, and then you're ready to just crack on with the rest of the next leg of your journey. So, from that side of things, it's good.
Excellent. What about some of the other tech then? What about the non-drivey tech stuff?
Okay, so in the tech side of things, we'll start with the usual safety features that you can get there. So it's got
safety features in a Volvo. Who'd have thought it? It's like having a good, regular, easy-to-use boot, isn't it?
So they have various options that were part of the car that I had. So there was driver assist stuff such as IntelliSafe Assist. So that's their pilot assist is what they call their driver assistant stuff.
Okay.
Which also has adaptive cruise control. I only very briefly went on the motorway. That worked fine on the motorway I was on. It was a clear road. The weather was clear. The traffic around me was fine. There was no remotely outlying environmental aspects that would possibly trip the car.
We tried it in a V90 years ago, didn't we? And it was good then. So I can only imagine it's at least the same or better.
Yeah. It's also got something called IntelliSafe Surround, which is blind spot, which will also help with the steering. If you suddenly start to pull out, and you haven't noticed something in the blind spot, it'll drag you back into the lane you're in.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's got cross-traffic alert, which includes an auto brake, rear auto brake, and rear collision warning mitigation. I'm not sure what the mitigation might be. Does it speed you up so nothing on you?
That's litigation. No, it's yeah. I know what it is. It's. We might not manage to stop you in time, but we'll try and make it less so. Yeah.
I never had to test any of those, thankfully. So I can't go into that. I will say that the lane keeping assist I had to switch off for my rural roads because the condition of the roads, as well as the overkeenness of it to keep you beside or inside a white line, sometimes wasn't conducive to safe driving. So I had to switch that off. And I will say as well that the automatic emergency braking didn't trigger on that one road that I take that many do. So that was impressive. Pleasing. I didn't have to switch that off, so I was happy with that. It had a parking assist pilot, which will do automatic parallel and 90-degree parking. I never had the opportunity to test that out, unfortunately. But I must make sure the next time I get a car with that I go to. There's a couple of car parks I know I can test out without there being anyone else about, so I will do that. It's got the brilliant 360-degree parking camera, and one of the other things I liked a lot was the Harman Kardon sound system, premium sound. Because the car's so quiet as well, the sound was just brilliant.
It starts to make such a difference in EVs, I think.
Yes, I think with EVs, with luxury now pointing to calmness. I keep saying calm as well. I know I must find a different word or a better word.
Is it agitating you?
More yes, more relaxed environment. Things like the entertainment systems can really come to the fore with the quality of sound, particularly if you're listening to really, really layered music, or you're listening to very good audio dramas or something like that. I think you can bring that in with 360-degree sound in there as well. I think that will really liven up an entertainment side of things. The car now, they have Apple CarPlay in there, but the car I had didn't have it. So this is a very Google-centric system now. Google is the operating system of choice with Volvo. So you need to be aware of that if you happen to have an issue with Google. You need to know that they are in there with the Google Assistant, Google Maps, and the Google Play Store to get more apps on there.
And it installs them in the car is the other part of that, because I went off looking for the stuff all about CarPlay earlier on. Yeah. And it was very clear that, you don't need any of that rubbish. Don't be so silly. You just install these things straight from the Google Play Store, straight into your car. So there is a certain amount of that going on. Just be aware if you are particularly wedded to a particularly Apple-y way of doing things, or you have problems with Google.
Yep. So again, it's just being aware of these before you make a decision on that, or work one way or another with it. I tested them out. The Google Assistant voice activation works very well, easy to recognize. But then again, I have a neutral voice.
Did you manage to find anyone with a regional accent to trial it?
No, they weren't about at the time, so I could not test that one, because that is the usual test that is done, and then I have to escort them away from the vehicle as they start swearing at the operating system for being regionalists.
That makes me so happy.
But it's going to recognize my voice because I am a white, middle-aged man. So the chances are it will. And like I say, my accent is pretty neutral, so if it can't cope with mine, it's got no hope with others.
Well, yes, I have a similar thing. Come on then. Overall, what do we feel? You've got a couple of niggles about the range, but generally positive. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Oh, it's so frustrating, this car. So frustrating.
It's no Honda HR-V. Come on, that's frustrating.
No, that wouldn't be frustrating. I think you were very polite. I would have been incandescent with what it was doing to you on the safety features. No, I found it very frustrating because of my use case, my circumstances, and my environment. Like I said when I was talking about the charging, if I had a home charger, this would be a nearly entirely positive review of the car. I would wince at the price, because starting at 49 and going up to nearly 59,000.
It's the cost they are, though. That's just it. It's one of those things where...
Yes, I don't believe any manufacturer at the minute is price gouging people on electric cars. I think they are trying to just about make any money at all, because they are being forced down this technological route at a really rapid pace.
Yeah.
So they have not had the chance to bring economies of scale or efficiencies into their purchasing and supply chain yet, I don't believe. It's quite a lot of money, I believe, but I don't believe that, like I said, that they are ripping anyone off. It's a lovely place to be in. It's a lovely car to drive. If this was the internal combustion engine or the hybrid or the plug-in hybrid, I would be telling people, yeah, no problem, go and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that nice to drive. It's that easy to use. It's that good looking. It's that distinctive. I know it's going to be well looked after if you go down the Care by Volvo route with their subscription. It's there's so many positive, but for me, in that week with what I needed the car to do and how it needed it to do it, and not having a home charger, I can't recommend this to anybody unless you have a home charger.
Okay,
if you've got a home charger, you are looking for something like this, and that price range is not outside your window, you have to go and try one.
So you like it. If you don't have a home charger, if you're in your position, hybrids or plug-in is obviously the way to go.
Definitely.
And if you go for those, you probably won't be disappointed.
No.
Excellent. But overall, better than a kick in the teeth, I'd say.
Yes.
Well, everyone, don't forget, now and next time, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts to the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget to leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such thing. Andrew, if people want to know more about the XC40 and the electric XC40s, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is via Twitter. If you search for Crap Windscreen, you'll find me there. And Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you personally, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is via Twitter as well, where I'm at AJP Bradley, Bradley. We'll be back before very long, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.